First of all, I'd just like to say I'm glad my hair's not pink anymore. Really don't know what I was thinking there. That was a little tidbit that I did with T-Mobile, courtesy of my agency, William Morris, which is kind of crazy that I even have an agent. This year's been a little bit of a whirlwind, and some of you may know because you've been following me and I've kind of showed you every step of the way, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to dinner with someone from William Morris and I might have an agent after this. And then you saw that I actually got one and that they were getting me cool stuff like this T-Mobile commercial. And some of you guys maybe don't know and haven't been following, and that's really cool. I hope you follow after this. But yeah, so I've never spoke about myself for 30 minutes before. So I kind of like took notes, so I'll be glancing at these. Anyway, so a lot of people recently have been reaching out to me like, hey, Julz, how'd you get your start? You know, I really want to do events or promotions, or I want to have a YouTube channel, and I really want to have an agency like yours. And I've kind of been trying to figure out how to formulate the answer to that question or those questions for people. And I've been thinking about it long and hard, and I think it's really important to kind of trace the steps back to the characteristics that it takes to kind of be the type of person that does those things, because I've learned through trial and error of hiring people and trying to make them mini-me's that not everybody can do this or has an interest in doing it or is gonna be good at Snapchatting or throwing parties or whatever. And so I've learned that there's certain characteristics that make for a good entertainer, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing on social media when we're putting short content out there. And that's like within you. So instead of me answering questions and telling people, you know, first I'm like, hey, are you creative? Do you like to be around people? Because if the answer to those questions are no, then you'll probably never have a large Instagram or Snapchat following. So I guess as a child, I've kind of always liked to entertain people. I used to, and I've always been bossy. So I used to, at my daycare, like make little handmade posters, like TLC performance outside in the playhouse at 2 p.m. And then I would like have these two girls who, like, God bless them, I would teach them horrible dance routines and like make them memorize their parts of the song. And I always wanted to be Left Eye, and I made them be T-Boz and Chili, and would just like go outside and get ready for the performance, and then there was like 3 people outside, so I'd go back into the room where all the kids were at. I'd be like, hello guys, our performance is outside right now, like come on and watch us. And this was when I was like maybe 6 years old, so, or 7, I don't know, when was TLC out? It was before I was 9. So I've kind of been interested in entertaining people for a really long time, and it grew from that to then I moved to Boston, and I had this like house with a big back staircase, and I would invite all my friends over and we would have like art day. So I'd be like, hey mom, I'm hosting art day at our house, hope that's cool. And I'd invite like 20 classmates over, and we would come and just draw or like glue macaroni on like little poster board and make stuff out of it, and that was our art. And then I would take the art that my friends made on art day, and then I would sell it to my parents by hanging it on the back staircase wall. So you'd like walk up and down these stairs and you'd see all this horrible art that we made, and I would sell it for 25 cents, 50 cents, whatever. And I was like maybe 12 years old at this point. So I've always made something out of nothing, like made of an event out of things. And it used to get me in trouble a lot at that age, but finally, as I got older, my mom used to be like, Julz, you have a big mouth and you never shut up. It's getting you in a lot of trouble right now, but one day it's gonna work to your advantage. And I'd be like, yeah, whatever, and you know, here we are, and it's kind of starting to work to my advantage. So those are the kinds of you know, people, if that was you when you were younger, that I think have the natural, you know, I was trying to sell my friends artwork for 50 cents. So like I've always tried to find a way to make money out of nothing. So yeah, that's that. That kind of turned into me liking to do all kinds of entertainment-based things in high school. So I was in chorus, I was on the dance team, I was in the drama club, I played basketball, and one day I had to make a choice between chorus and basketball. I gave basketball up because I really sucked, and I stuck with chorus. And my dream was always to be like the biggest singer ever. I thought I was gonna be the next Madonna, and by the time I was 18. So I turned 18, and that didn't happen. I was still not Madonna and still didn't have any money or the confidence to sing in front of people. So I was trying to find ways to make money to move out and have like my own place in college. And I realized that nobody was throwing a prom after party. And I was friends with the basketball players and the chorus people. And I had all these different groups of friends that didn't really mesh with one another naturally. But I was like, hey, no one's throwing an after party. Maybe I could throw a party, invite all my friends from different groups, sell tickets for $10 at lunch under the table. I got suspended for that. And then, throw like a rager. So I made my own tickets. They were $10. I'll never forget it. I got suspended. Didn't tell my mom I got suspended because then she'd find out why and cancel the party. So I had her drop me off every day at school and just like walked around until school was over. So that happened, and the party was crazy. It was like a helicopter came, it's a long story. I'll tell that another day. But needless to say, I made $2,000. And that at the time for me was like a huge amount of money. And I was like, wow, I could really make money throwing parties. This is crazy. This is great. I'm going to start doing this. So I went to college, and the clubs in Tampa, that's where I went to school, they heard about this party because it was on the radio show. So the guy on the radio show, they always do like Donkey of the Day. So I'll just tell the story really quick. So basically I had this empty house that my uncle had on the market. And he was like, hey, Julz, for graduation, like I'll let you throw a party at my mansion. I was like, sweet deal, dude. Let's do it. So he's like, the one thing that can't happen is the kids cannot park on the street. It was like a peninsula street, dead end, rich neighbors, they wouldn't be happy about that. So I wrote on every ticket, do not park on the street. Everybody parked on the street, obviously. So, I hired football players to be our security. And I told them, I thought that great marketing plan. I was like, dude, you guys are going to be security. The cheerleaders are going to be bartenders. It's going to be great. We're going to sell out. And we did, but they weren't real security. So when I told them, hey guys, this is a private property, cops cannot come in, and no matter how intimidating they are, they have to have permission from the owner or a warrant to come in. Do not let them in. Cops come, the football players answer the door. The cops are like, we're coming in. I'm like, no, I come down, I talk to the cops. I'm like, sorry guys, private property, really nothing you could do here. I go about my business, keep partying, and they come back, the football players let them in. What happened was the neighbors called the cops and said, there's a burglary going on at an empty house next door. There's all these kids, they're going crazy. We gotta get them out of here. So my uncle's like, Julz, I'm gonna talk to the cops. He was wasted. He's like, Julz, I'm gonna talk to the cops. Just bring everybody upstairs. Anybody that's underage, bring them upstairs. So I was like, okay, everyone at the party, come upstairs, because we were all 18 at that point. And I hid us all in this room that was big enough to house 200 people. It was supposed to be like a gymnasium. And we all were I'm like, everybody sit down, shut up. I'm going crazy. And next thing I know, I see this bright light coming past my face. And everybody's and I'm like, what is going on? And I turn around and it's a helicopter, and SWAT team members are starting to slide from the helicopter into the gymnasium from the balcony. So this is a mansion on a water. So these kids are all afraid that they're gonna get suspended, not be able to walk in their uniforms, all kinds of crazy stuff. So they start jumping off the balcony into the water, really crazy. It was a fiasco. So this was news, apparently. In Tampa, not a lot of stuff goes on. So the next morning, my mom's driving me to school. We're listening to my favorite radio show. And the dude comes on the show and he's like, all right, this week's donkey of the day is some idiot who let his niece throw a party in a mansion. And my mom happened to know that me and my uncle just had started a relationship. I hadn't known him prior. And so she looks at me and I was like, and she knew he had mansions on the market. That's what he did for a living. And I'm like, Ma, that's crazy. I don't know. So we're still driving, and they're talking, and they're like, yeah, all these underage kids, what kind of idiot would put his license on the line, blah, blah. Then I'm like, oh, my mom believes me. I slept at Sarah's house, it's fine. She didn't let me go to parties ever. So I was the one kid that could never go to parties in high school, oddly enough. So at this point, I was like, I'm good. But then they start taking calls, and people start calling in. So I get really sweaty at this point. So somebody calls in and goes, I was at that party, that was my girl Julz's party. My mom's Colombian. So she immediately whips the car around, pulls my hair, and just starts slapping the crap out of me. And I was like, Mom, but I gotta go to school. I understand, but I gotta go to school. She's like, oh, if you think for 1 second I'm gonna let you have your glory day, you are out of your mind, Juliana Marie Goddard. Like, we're going back to the house. Drag me to the back to the house. I had no glory day. And I was at the house, like, just getting text messages from all my friends, like, sick party, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, damn, I wish I was in school. I'd be the man right now. So that was the beginning of, like, my nightlife career. After the club owners heard about the party, I started getting like messages on Facebook like, hey Julz, come out to our club, we'll give you a table and some free bottles if you bring like your friends, whatever. So I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I'm gonna go party at a club I would never get into for free, and they're gonna cop my drinks. It's great. And I was 19 at the time. So, not gonna name the clubs. So I started doing that. I did that for a while. Again, glory. My friends were like, oh, this is awesome. Julz is the best. You could get me into all these clubs. My first like client, I guess you would say, is they were like, hey Julz, the Yankees are coming into town. We need you to get them to spend money. I was like, sick, I'm from Boston, like, let's get these losers. So I'm at the club and Jabba is there, and I was like, how am I gonna get this dude to spend money? So I go over to him and I just start talking crap. And I was like, yeah, I heard you guys like drink wine coolers up there. What's up with it, you know? And he's like, wine coolers? Like, where you, you're a little girl. I could outdrink you. I was like, cool, let's do shots of Johnny Walker Blue Label right now. I don't know if you guys know, but those shots are like maybe $50 to $80 a piece, you know, at any upscale nightclub. So we went back and forth, and Jabba got really drunk. He actually, I feel really bad about this, but he got a DUI that night. However, the club loved me after that, and they offered me my own night. So I was like, sick. They were gonna pay me like $250 to throw my own party, and I was like, hold on, this doesn't really add up. And that's when I first started thinking in a business mindset. Like, all right, these guys obviously need something from me that I have that they don't have. What is it? And I was like, okay, maybe it's hot girls, maybe it's like the energy I bring to the room. And I kind of compiled a list of things that made me special. And I went back to them and I said, all right, well, you guys want me to do a party. I can do X, Y, Z for you. I'm gonna need a percentage of your bar. I was like 19 at the time, but they gave me a percentage of the bar. It wasn't the 20% that I wanted, but it was a good amount, and it was more money than I had ever made. So my nightlife career got started, and that was on a Monday night in Tampa, small city, whatever. I fell in love, and the guy that I was with wasn't really happy about the fact that it was my job to get like Yankees players and Buccaneers drunk. So I kind of slowed down. I had all these great plans, parties I was gonna throw, like VIP concierge service. I was like 20 years old, I was about to kill it, take over the market, and I totally slowed down for this guy. Things didn't work out. He was a little psycho. So I was talking to my friend Jesse, who's here in the front row, oddly periscoping me right now. And I was like, man, Jesse, like, I really wanna, I don't know, I feel like I'm tied up right now. I have all these things I wanna do, and I just can't do them with Trey. She's like, dude, leave him. Like, what are you doing? Move. She's like, you could totally kill it in Vegas. I'm like, you're so right. I'd kill it in Vegas. Let's go. So it was my 21st birthday. I was like, I'm gonna wait till I'm 21. 21st birthday comes. Tell my dude that I'm going to Vegas with my girls. He's like, absolutely not. So I'm like, all right, cool. So he goes to the gym one morning. I pack my bags. It was my apartment. Everything was in my name. So I was like, nah, I'll figure all this stuff out later, whatever. So I pack up my bags and I take a flight. My mom worked for Delta, so I had the liberty of flying for like nothing at the time, maybe like $50. So I was like, hey mom, list me for a flight to Vegas. I'm gonna go to Vegas for a couple of days for my birthday. She's like, cool. I leave him. He has no idea. I go to Vegas. I have the time of my life. Like, I knew nobody. I made so many friends, met like all the VIP people at every club. I was like, oh, I'm locked in Vegas right now. Like, I'm about to get a job. These waitresses make $100,000 a year. I'm rich. I already spent all the money I made in my head on the first trip. So I told them like, hey guys, I'm gonna be back next week. Like, help me get a job, let's go. So I went back home, packed up the rest of my stuff, told Jesse, thanks for the idea. I'm about to kill it in Vegas. Come visit me when you can. Went to Vegas and was miserable. Couldn't get a job. I wanted to work at Cosmopolitan. This was like right when Cosmopolitan opened, 2011 or something, because I was 21, yeah, 2011. It was a lot harder to get a job than I thought it was. You had to know people, you had to treat those people very well, and I just wasn't down for that. So I was realizing like everybody, this is a crazy place. Everybody lies about what, I made this friend who was a music producer, and then I realized he was a pimp like 2 days later. I had no idea. I went to dinner with him, and my friend was like, yeah, I saw you out to dinner with this like pimp. And I was like, what? And then I was like, yo, he said he like produced for Beyonce or something. And he was like, oh, Julz, come on. So I learned all these hard lessons in the 2 months that I was in Vegas, ran out of money, and I was like, I gotta go home. So I went back to Tampa, started over, fell back in love with that guy. My heart was broken again. I was like, dude, I gotta get out of here. Where am I moving now? So Jessie had moved to Miami in the time that I was in Vegas. So she was like, well, come move to Miami. You know, you have some family you need to get to know down here. Like, it could be a good experience for you. You could stay with me at first. I was like, cool. So I moved to Miami. I was like, I'm about to move to Miami and take over Live. Like, that's the coolest club in the industry. I'm gonna run stuff. I'm gonna throw the craziest parties. I'll get hired, no problem. I moved to Miami, applied for Live, didn't hear back from anybody. Applied for their sister club, didn't hear back from anybody. So I went into medical sales. Didn't really do so well there. So that lasted for like a couple of weeks. But I did that, I waitressed, I worked at a lounge, some really weird lounge in Brickell. And I was working all these crazy jobs, just trying to have enough money so that I wouldn't have to like stay at Jessie's house anymore. During that time, she definitely held it down. Thank you very much. Helped me get these jobs, and I was just, I felt like I was working so much. You know, when you first get hired at a place, you don't get tips, and you're like on training pay for like the first 2 weeks. You don't get a check for like 3 weeks. I came down there with $500. I was like running very short at this point. I finally got my first check. I had like $800. I was like, yes, I'm about to move out. I had the cash in my wallet. Me and Jessie got into a fight. I went downstairs to talk shit about her to one of my other friends. Like, oh, this Jessie girl sucks. And I'm like I'm on the bus stop. And I had my purse with me, and I was just talking heatedly, and I left my purse on the chair while I was like pacing, like, oh man, I can't stand this girl, oh my God. And my bag was right there, and I turned back around, and my bag was gone. I had my social security card, my license, the $800 I had worked 3 days to get, and I like literally had a nervous breakdown and started crying and didn't know what I was gonna do. I went back upstairs, and I called my mom. I was like, Jessie, don't even talk to me right now. I like called my mom. I was like, Mom, I don't know what to do. I'm on the balcony crying. I'm like, I think I need to come back home. I had been gone for like a month at this point. And my mom's like, come back home, baby. Like, we miss you, you know? And I never quit on anything. So I felt really defeated. And while I'm talking to my mom, I look over the balcony and I see this guy. He was like walking, he looked like he might be homeless, but he had bags, and he was walking in the middle of Biscayne Boulevard, which if any of you guys have been to Miami, it's a freaking highway, that street. So this dude is walking in the yellow lines in the middle of the street. He drops his bags that he had with him, and he just lays down in the middle of the yellow lines. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm screaming, I'm like on the 40th floor. Dude definitely can't hear me, but I'm like, yo, get up, there's cars coming. Guy can't hear me. My mom's like, what's going on? I'm like, Mom, I gotta call you back. Like, this guy's trying to kill himself. So I'm like, Jessie, come here, what should we do? She's like, we gotta call the cops. The cars are swerving. They're about to crash. It's definitely about to cause an accident. So we call the cops, and I'm like, hi, 911. She's like, is it emergency? I'm like, yeah, this guy's like in the street trying to kill himself. Somebody's gonna crash, it's bad news. So she's like, all right, calm down, tell me where you are. As soon as I told her the exact like point where this guy was, and she said, okay, thank you, ma'am, for calling, we're sending dispatch. I kid you not, it's like the true story. Dude gets up, like nothing, like gets up off the floor, picks up his bags, and walks away. And I was like, is this a joke? Like, what just happened? I thought maybe I saw something that actually wasn't there. And I'm very spiritual, I guess you could say. So I was like, okay, God, it's not that bad. I lost $800. I get it. Like, is this what you're trying to say? Maybe my life isn't that bad. Because I really felt like I was just trying to play catch up, and everything I did, like nothing was working. I felt like I had no food, I had no clothes. Like, I finally got a job, and now I'm gonna have to go get another ID, a social security card. Like, I really felt like it set me back. And then I looked at this guy who wanted to take his life for whatever reason, and I was like, okay, it's not that bad. So that kind of gave me the motivation to stay in Miami and like keep trucking and see if Liv would actually hire me one day. And oddly enough, like 3 days after that, they did. They kind of sunned me. They put me at the small club, and they didn't let me promote or throw parties. They were like, you're the hostess, you're gonna walk people to their table. So I was like, cool, I'll start from wherever. So I was 21 at this point, worked for them for about 2 years. I spent that time basically just making friends, making connections. I knew in my head, my goal at that time was, I didn't really know what I wanted to be, but I knew that at the moment in Miami, I wanted to be like the best girl party thrower ever and just make tons of money and own my own club one day. And that's because I had tried singing. I tried out for American Idol. I made it through, nobody really knows this. I was like 18 when I tried out. I made it through, I sang Fergie's Big Girls Don't Cry. That was like the 9th round, right? I was like in front of Simon and those people. And I was fine the whole time until I had to sing in front of Simon. And then I was like shaking and sweating profusely. Forgot the words to Big Girls Don't Cry. Was like totally off key, and they were like, get out of here. So I was like, damn, God, I thought I was supposed to be a singer. Like, what am I supposed to do? And you know, that's when the whole club thing in Tampa started happening. So I was like, all right, maybe I'm just gonna throw parties for a little bit. So I felt like at that time, all right, I'm not supposed to be a singer. Acting wasn't really working out. I went to school for broadcast journalism, by the way, and while I was in school, I interned at this like local Univision station. I don't know, it's like Hispanic. And I did this show where I reported about like Tampa sports. So that was my background at the time, and they wanted me to keep reporting for them for free, and I needed to work, so I was like, I'm gonna throw parties and make money, screw you guys. And all of that never really turned into anything. So here I am working at the clubs in Miami, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna network my ass off. And that's what I did. People started coming just the nights that I was working. They started staying longer when I would get off of work and go party with them downstairs, and I started telling the club, like, hey, look, check out the numbers since I've been here and see if there's been any kind of increase in sales. And the guy was like, yeah, you know, there has been some kind of a difference since you've been here. I'm like, I'm telling you, I've been doing this on purpose. Like, I go in there, I hype stuff up. Like, you got to see me in action. You got to come. I'm talking to the owner of the club. And the owner of the club's like, all right, girl, like, cute. So he never came to see me in action or whatever, but he heard through the grapevine that I was doing a good job, and he gave me the opportunity to have my own night or, you know, promote on one of his nights. And that's kind of like how that started. And with me making the connections I was making, I became friends with LeBron, or everybody in the world parties in Miami. It's the best place in the world to party. And that's the truth, I'm not just biased. So you could imagine the kind of people that I was meeting, like the owner of Google, basketball players, actors, singers, and I was keeping in touch with these people and really making it a point to keep in touch with them. No matter how tired I was, if they were in town, I'd make myself get out of bed and go take them out, even though I had just worked like a 60-hour shift, you know, like didn't sleep for 3 days. They're like, oh, Julz, we're in town, we wanna go out, can you take us out? I'm like, in bed dying, yeah, sure, I'll be right there. I did that for like 2 years until I was the go-to person. Nobody came to Miami without hitting me up to go out. So at that point, I became their friends, you know? So these guys are like posting pictures of me on their Instagram. Thanks for the great time, Julz. Getting a couple of followers here, a couple of followers there. Every time I went out or was in the right place at the right time, I would notice my following gaining. I was getting people from Ohio because of LeBron, Texas from Johnny Manziel, New York from Ronnie Feig, all these different friends that I had that were influential in markets that I wasn't necessarily touching firsthand were giving me a piece of their following every time we hung out. So this was happening, and I started getting like lots of followers on Instagram and Twitter, and Snapchat wasn't really around yet at the time. So with that happening, I started feeling more comfortable voicing my opinion, telling the marketing company I was with, like, hey guys, we should do this or we should do that. And I was the only girl in the company, besides the girl who did the paperwork and greeted people at the front desk. And I really just didn't feel like, no, they didn't take me seriously at all. Like, they weren't listening to any of my ideas. I had festival plans, like, you know, I was like, hey guys, we should have stages at festivals. This was 5 years ago, before there was VIP stages at Coachella and Lollapalooza and all these, you know, big festivals. And they're like, yeah, that's a good idea. No, none of it ever got implemented. I would follow up. They'd kind of be like, yeah, we'll talk about it later. And eventually I was just like, I hate my job. No one's listening to me. I hate these guys. Like, they keep sunning me. They're treating me like a dumb girl, and I hate it here. I'm gonna save up money and take a trip. So that's what I did. So I made the most money I'd ever made, I think in like 2013. The Heat won the playoffs, and the players would go out with me every time. I was getting 10% of what they were spending. They were spending like $10,000 a pop, $50,000 for the people out of town. It was crazy. So like, man, I have all this money. What am I gonna do with it? And of course, I'm 21, 22, so I'm not gonna save it. So I was like, I hate this place. I hate everybody here. I'm moving to Paris. So I booked a one-way flight to Paris. I kind of like Airbnb'd a flat out there for a month. And I knew no French. I had no friends there. And I kind of just wandered about town reading like F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway, thinking I was like so smart and just cultured and knew a ton about the history of the Roaring 20s and like Paris and all that kind of stuff. And I fell in love with just kind of learning about people and like different cultures. And this was before Snapchat, so I was making videos and stuff. And wait, this is where I'm supposed to cue the video? I'm cueing the video. Oh, there it goes.
All I think about was his line where he's like, last night I cried a tear of joy. What did I do to deserve this? Or something like that. I don't know, that was probably really bad. Sorry, hip-hop head. Anyways, I feel like Rick Ross right now, nonetheless. Wondering if it's like,
I'm at Palace of Versailles.
Possibly me, a little girl who was brought up in, man, where was I brought up? I can't even tell you because I could really say so many places, but I associate myself the most with Winthrop because that's where I first knew any semblance of a family. And so, I'll say Winthrop. Small little town, one entrance, one exit. Everyone there was kind of well off. My friends all went on camping trips and vacations to Myrtle Beach, and we stayed home every summer. Well, we did go camping a couple of times.
There wasn't 10 seconds, unfortunately. So
I definitely didn't feel as though I got to do as much as the other kids. I got left out a lot, and now I'm here, and it's so beautiful. And I wish that my parents could be with me, but next time. I'm such a Pisces.
So that was like my first kind of Snapchat. I didn't really share videos with anybody on my following until I went to the Palace of Versailles and was like literally brought to tears. I was like, oh my God, there's so many people back home that would love to see this. And I actually took the camera off myself at some point in this video and showed all my friends back home on Facebook what the Palace of Versailles was like, because it was just so amazing to me. And like I said, at this point I went there because I felt like I hated Miami and how superficial it was and all the people there. And then I started to realize that, well, so Paris was amazing, still hated Miami at that point. Then I went to Egypt. And Egypt, I had dreamed about going to my whole life, and it was amazing. Nonetheless, if I go there now, I'm sure it'll be a different experience, but I went to Egypt on a budget. It's probably something I don't really suggest, because if you don't have a tour guide and you don't have somebody with you that speaks the language, you get hounded by little kids that break your heart because they're trying to sell you notebooks. The place really smells if you're walking around. It's extremely dirty. There's intimidating guys with guns everywhere, bullet holes in the buildings. And it was very like it kind of changed my life going there, because I realized like, oh, I love Miami. I want to go back to Miami. Like, take me back to Miami right now. And I got in some trouble there and had to pay off the officials to not go to jail. That's another story for another time. But I basically ran out of all the money I had and had to borrow money to come home. So that was I went to, that summer, I went to 8 countries. I had never left a country before, and I went to 8 countries, and that was like my dream, was always to travel. So that was a really amazing time for me, and I went there looking for like my purpose, right? I'm sure we all have that moment in life where we're like, oh my gosh, I'm 23, I'm not doing what I wanted to do or thought I was gonna do. What am I supposed to be doing on this earth, God? And that's why I went there, to figure that out. And I was sure I was gonna have the answer. Traveled for 3 months, lived in Paris, like still didn't have the answer, but I knew that I was gonna go back home, stay in Miami, change the circle of people I was in, because it wasn't the city I hated, but just the lifestyle I was living, and see what I could do to kind of maybe bring the human out of the people that I was surrounded by at the time. So I'm like, all right, what's the problem here? We're all in Miami, we're going out all the time, we're partying all the time. We don't really care about one another, we just care about ourselves and getting ahead. So like, people probably think I'm superficial and shallow too because I'm in this industry. Maybe the people I work with aren't so bad. What can I do to kind of bring the human out of them? And this was around the time that #lunchbag started. For those of you guys who don't know about #lunchbag, it's a really amazing thing where it started in LA. A group of friends were like, hey, we're gonna get together, we're gonna spend $50 and make some lunches in brown paper bags and hand them out and start a hashtag for it now that this whole social media thing is blowing up. And we're gonna spread awareness for free on Instagram and encourage people to feed their community. So I was like, this is cool. This is what I wanna do when I come back. I'm gonna bridge the gap between cool and conscious. I'm gonna have Taz's Angels feeding people. I'm gonna get the owner of Live feeding people. It's gonna be great. If I could get these guys to come to a party, I could totally get them to feed our community. That really didn't happen per se, but it was amazing. And I did get maybe 10% of the nightlife people that I invited to come out. And then the other 90% were just like the normal people who I already knew had good hearts and minds. And they came out, and it was this amazing thing that I started. And that happened, and then LeBron, who was a friend of mine, was launching a Sprite flavor, and I had never done anything on my own at this point outside of Live. And he was like, hey, Julz, I'm launching this Sprite flavor, and I told the people at Coca-Cola that I want you to throw the party. I was like, sweet, dude, like, this is sick. And I didn't even think of the fact that I might be getting paid for it. Well, Coca-Cola emailed me, and we started our communication back and forth, and they were like, yeah, we're gonna pay you X amount of dollars to do this party. And I was like, they must have like added a zero or something. Like, this is crazy, there's no way. It was more money than it's the most money I'd ever seen in my life. So I told, my mom about it, and my mom's not really business savvy, but she was like, hey, I think there might be something with like taxes there that you might wanna like research and find out. So I was like, all right, cool, Mom. So I hit up some business savvy friends of mine, asked them for advice, and they were like, yeah, you definitely wanna do that under your company. I was like, I don't really have a company. And they were like, yeah, you should start one so you don't miss out on, X amount of dollars from this check. So I was like, all right. So I started YesJulz Agency, for lack of better creative names. And at the time, it was just me. So I'm like faking it till I make it at this point. Coca-Cola's like, yeah, so can you do event production? I was like, yeah, no problem. Me and my team will get to this right away. And I had no team, had never done an event, but I had cool ideas. And I was like, yo, we should have a green carpet instead of a red carpet. They were like, love that. Where would I get a green carpet from? I don't know. I Googled it. I figured it out. Like, that has been me in my entire life. I just jump in the water and learn how to swim. And that's my advice to anyone. Because had they come to me and they said, can you do event production? And I said, no, I probably never would have started my agency, and I never would have gone in this direction. It wasn't until after I struggled to put that event together and then saw that it was a success and that I was onto something that I realized, wow, Ron works with Coca-Cola, but he also works with Nike and Beats by Dre and Red Bull and all these other people. Like, maybe I could start doing stuff for them. And that's kind of how my mind shifted. And my travels didn't tell me to produce events or anything, but just funny how the way life works out, where I figured it out once I got back. And that was in 2013. I also wanted to change the culture of my city. I noticed when I went to Vegas, when I went to Paris, and I was traveling all these places, people were like, oh, nice to meet you, where are you from? And I'm like, Miami, and they're like, oh. And I was like, okay, like, what's that supposed to mean? I realized that there was this negative connotation about women from Miami. And it wasn't a huge disbelief that that was in place, because if I thought about the girls that I did know from the city, I had to agree with most of the people who were judging me. It seemed like there was this whole thing going on where girls didn't want to pay for their own dinners or like buy their own clothes, and there was always some guy in the background supporting them, and I thought that was pretty whack. But it was a known thing, and it was like celebrated. Eve knows, she's in the back there. We used to like get invited to dinners all the time, and we would go. We were like, oh, free dinners. I don't have money to go to STK right now. Let me just go ahead with this guy to STK, whatever. And on Instagram, this is when Instagram really started getting popping. You would see all the time girls posting their bags or like taking a pics with their friends, and they're slightly lifting up their heels so you could see their red bottom. And I was like, oh my gosh, please. So I was like, how can I change the thought, their perception of women in my city? I was like, well, the only person I can control is me. So how do I shift this conversation? And that's kind of how somebody said to me once, like, we were having a conversation, and they were like, man, Julz, like, all you care about is work. Why don't you just take a break? And I was like, I'm never not working. And then I was like, I'm never not working. And that was kind of how the hashtag started. And I just started obnoxiously pushing the hashtag. Like, all my posts on Instagram were like, going to this meeting, at this meeting, doing this job right now. Like, look at me, I'm always working. And as obnoxious and corny as it was, perception is reality. And people stopped inviting me to dinners and started hitting me up like, hey, Julz, can we have a meeting? I really want to work with you on this project. Or, hey, can you consult me on my social platforms? Like, I really want to get my Instagram numbers up. And I was like, oh man, this is working. And not only pertaining to me, but I saw the other girls that even I didn't have respect for at the time because we're human and we judge people. They were starting to change their posts. And they were like, oh, working out in the gym or doing this or doing that. I was like, oh my God, this is working, this is great. And then like P. Diddy dropped the never not working hashtag and other people did. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's taking off, I gotta copyright this. So I copyrighted it and I thought maybe I should make some, actually somebody else made a shirt first and I was like, hold up, that's my copyright, like why don't we make the shirt together? So we teamed up and we started making like merchandise and never not working became my mantra. That's when Snapchat really started like taking off. At the time, I was like, there's no way I'm getting another app. I have Facebook, I have Twitter, I have everything. Jessie told me to get Snapchat. She's like, there's videos, you should like totally do it. And I was like, dude, no way. I'm not getting this app where people could just send me random nudes. Like, it's crazy. So I was like, I'm not doing it. Then one day, I'm driving and my sisters are in the back seat and they're like doing something on the phone and they're giggling. I'm like, guys, what's going on back there? And they're like, oh, we're looking at our friend's story. I'm like, what do you mean you're looking at your friend's story? So they showed me, they're like, oh, Snapchat just did this update where you can now make public feeds. I was like, oh, what do you mean, like a profile on Instagram? And they're like, yeah, it's so cool. So I was like, oh my gosh, let me see it. So they showed it to me and I was like, my mind immediately started racing and I was like, this is brilliant. Like, this is a new television network. And at the time, I may or may not have had one of the hottest parties on South Beach because, you know, after that whole live thing, I got the opportunity finally to have my own night. And so I was making a little noise in the city and producers, the reality TV was hot, like it still is, unfortunately. And producers were like coming to me like, hey girl, we want you on this show. Like, come do a take for our show. And I was so excited, like, here I am, I'm gonna finally be on TV, mom, you know? So go to these things and they were the wackest, just the most horrible concepts. It was like, one of them was like rich kids in Miami. And they were like, yeah, we're gonna have, I'm like, I'm not even rich. Like, who gave you my number? I'm not rich yet. But I was just trying to be on TV. And in my head, I was like, yo, even though I'm not rich yet and I'm not gonna be a good part for this show, I'm gonna go in there, they're gonna love me, and they're gonna be my own show. And that's kind of always been my train of thought. So I go in there and they put me in front of the camera. I'm like selling myself, oh, we're never not working, like girl power, telling them all these like great substantial things about myself. And then they put me in front of the camera and they're like, so Julz, tell us about your designer bag collection. And I'm like, do you guys like not get it? I just told you a ton of things and I mentioned that I'm not rich, so I obviously don't have any designer bags. And I just realized at the time that I was wasting my time and those producers and those networks just didn't get what I was trying to do and they didn't see my vision, and I had to take matters into my own hands. So I tried doing the YouTube thing, but I'm not good with computers. I'm not good at like following up. Like, I'm good at starting things. I'm getting better at finishing them, but like I would start a YouTube project and then I'd be like, oh, I gotta find somebody to edit this. I need it to be perfect. And then it'd be like a month before that video even got up. So when Snapchat came about, I was like, oh yeah, I could just Snapchat myself and this can be my video content. This could be my own reality show. So I started Snapchatting. And you know, my mom used to make like jokes. I would call my mom and talk to her all the time. And she'd be like, so Julz, what are you doing? And I'd be like, oh, you know, just I'm going through this walk. I'm about to get ready for this party. And she's like, oh, must be nice. Like, some of us got to work around here. And I was like, is this woman nuts? Like, it took me weeks to put this party together. She obviously doesn't get it that this is like a real life job, you know? And I'm like, man, and my friends, they would hit me up and they'd be like, hey, Julz, like, let's go out for drinks, let's go bowling. I'd be like, sorry, I got to work on this thing. And they're like, what are you working on? Like, you have FDR Mondays, you know? And I'm like, people really are underestimating me right now. So not only am I going to Snapchat, but I'm going to Snapchat my never not working mantra. Like, I'm going to show these people that I wake up earlier than them. I'm planning these parties, making these phone calls, sending these emails to get money from brands to throw my parties, trying to book artists. Then when the artist gets there, I'm taking care of them, hosting them so they want to come back and let me book them next time. I'm doing walkthroughs, sound checks, inviting people, getting to the venue, getting my employees in place to like run the party. Like, this is a real thing, you know? And it's not 9 to 5 because I got to do all that brand work and all the emails and whatnot, serious stuff, from 9 to 5. And then after that stops, I have to go and get ready and get the venue ready and do all these other things. So I'm like, I'm actually working more than you, Mom, you know, but I'm gonna show you better than I'm gonna tell you. And that was kind of why I started Snapchatting my entire life. And people were just watching, and it was like so weird. I was like, wow, this is crazy. A couple thousand people just watched my snaps. And then it was like 15,000 people, and then it was 20,000 people, and then somebody that works for Ryan Seacrest, Nelson, shout out Nelson, my man. Nelson, who worked for iHeartMedia, was the one that was helping Ryan Seacrest make his list of like top Snapchatters to follow. And I was on that list. And like the next day I wake up, I have all these notifications and I'm like, oh, what's going on? Like somebody posts a butt pic or something of me? And I look and it's like Ryan Seacrest named me, Jerry Leto himself, of course, and a couple other people, the 7 best Snapchatters. I was like, this is crazy. He's my idol. Like I want to be on multiple networks. I want to produce my own shows. This is amazing. Like Ryan Seacrest knows who I am. And that was when I really was like, man, people are really watching me on this thing. So I started finding other things to Snapchat. Like I was like, okay, I'm not just gonna Snapchat my own parties. I'm gonna go to other parties and Snapchat them like I'm a broadcaster. I'm gonna be around my friends and just start asking them like 10-second speed questions. Yo, what's your favorite thing to sing in the shower? What's your favorite thing to eat? And it's like, luckily I happen to be friends with people that you guys actually care to hear those answers from. But they have tons of friends and none of their friends are trying to do those things to, you know, kind of build their own brand. So I've always been very resourceful and creative when thinking of ways to, I don't know, build my empire that I'm trying to build or whatever. So that's kind of how the whole Snapchat thing started. And at the time I was telling people like, yo, you guys should start Snapchat for your business. But they're like, oh, it doesn't really work for brands. We don't really see how Snapchat could be of use to us. And I was like, this is free commercials, like free television network slots. Like what don't you guys get? And nobody really got it for a whole year. I was Snapchatting, so I basically owned that platform. So there's tons of people at this point that have more Snapchat followers than me. I really don't have that many in comparison to like Kylie Jenner or like a Chantel Jeffries or any of these models who have millions of followers on Instagram. But I have a core following that's followed me since day one. And that's the one thing that I could really say is that the reason why these people are loyal to me and they follow me is because I'm very open with my life and my experiences and my feelings. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of sexiness on the Snap. There's lots of fun parties and celebrities. But the stuff that I get the most feedback from is like after the party when I like get in bed and I'm like, I'm so tired and I have this pimple and I need to do this shoot tomorrow. And people are like, oh my gosh, I'm tired too. I have pimples too. Like maybe I don't have to do a shoot tomorrow, but I feel you. What are you using to fix your pimples? And I'm like answering them. And then next thing you know, I get a P.O. box and I'm getting mail from people all over the world. I started this Road to Beyonce thing when I was in super good shape. I need to get back on it. But I was trying to motivate myself. I was like, if I've got 20,000 people watching me and I say I'm working out tomorrow morning, there's no way I'm waking up and not working out tomorrow morning. So it became a way for like, not only me to push people, but for people to push me. And it was really working. I was eating healthier, doing everything that I needed to do. And people were like, yo, you're inspiring me. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I'm just trying to make it. I can't believe I'm inspiring you. And you know, I was getting Snapchats from like women in Dubai twerking in burqas. I swear to you. And that's when I was like, this is so great. Like I'm making women who have to cover themselves up because of their religion in the country that they live in feel comfortable in their own skin and like feel sexy, you know? And because I talked often about these problems, I felt like we're watching the Kardashians and no salt thrown, but we're watching these shows on television and we're looking up to these women. My 13-year-old cousin wants lip injections and she's like sucking on a shot glass for the Kylie Jenner thing. I don't know. It was getting a little crazy and I was like, this is nuts. This isn't real life. These aren't real people. Like, you know, why? I wish this person would just talk about their cellulite because we all have it and I would like to know what she's doing to get rid of it, or, you know, I wish they would tell us their Photoshop secrets or like whatever, you know, just be real with us so that we don't have these like false perceptions of what the perfect woman should be and we're not striving to be something that will never be. And so I said, maybe I don't have millions of people watching me, but I have a couple thousand, and if I'm honest about myself and my journey and my insecurities, then maybe I could just touch the few people that I do have following me. And I think that that's always been kind of like worked in my favor. And when I speak to people, when I speak to brands, I say, the best thing you could be is yourself. Nobody, Jay-Z said it. You built yourself, no one's designed like you, right? So you try to be someone else, you're never gonna be that person better than they're gonna be themselves, you know? So you have a gift, and the gift is that you were born, and you have all these qualities that make you, you. Maybe you pick your nose like I do, or maybe you're, you know, you're extra thick, and like that might be in style tomorrow and out of style, in style today and out of style tomorrow, but it's you, and you're the one who dictates what's in style for you and what's not, you know? So this has been the best, like, most amazing journey, and just from me being myself and just being open with my following, they felt comfortable being open with me, and brands did start taking notice of and did start listening to my ideas. And next thing you know, I'm getting paid to go to festivals that I used to not even be able to afford tickets to, and I'm getting like driven around in a golf cart, VIP status, like, oh, we're gonna bring you over to A$AP Rocky so you can ask him a couple of questions. I'm like, I guess, you know, and it's like all these amazing opportunities that are happening, and, you know, it's just been like a wild ride, and it is turning into so much more than I ever expected. All these things are coming full circle. So yeah, broadcast journalism didn't work out for me when I was 19, but look, now I have my own channel, and I'm like interviewing people, and I have a podcast, and all these big companies like iHeart and Beats, and they want my podcast on their network, you know, and it's like, really? This is crazy. And I never thought I'd do a podcast or even come back to that, you know, and it's all coming back full circle. Or like even singing. The other day I interviewed some of these producers from Miami for my podcast, and we were talking, I'm like, man, we should bring Miami booty bass music back. And they're like, let's do it. So I was like, let's do it. And I went to their studio that night, and we recorded a song called Snap on the Chat. Watch out for it. And it's totally Miami booty bass, and like, you know, that's the thing is if you have, and these are just like fun ideas that I have. I'll have fun ideas like, oh, how funny would it be if I brought the Blues Clues Mail Time song back every time I checked all this cool mail I'm getting? And my friends were like, yeah, that'd be pretty funny. And next thing you know, I'm like, Mail Time! And then everybody's sending me mail. I'm getting like the craziest stuff in my mail for free, and other people are singing the Mail Time song, and it's like a trend or whatever now. And you know, I just can't emphasize enough, like all these cool, fun, crazy ideas that you have can be profitable if you're just thinking in that mindset. So that's always been my mindset. If my friends are like, hey Julz, like we should have a bowling night. I'm like, yeah, let's make a bowling night. I'm gonna invite the whole world. We're gonna sell tickets for $10. We're gonna get media there. And like, I'm always thinking about how I can make nothing into something. And you know, I think that's really important for you guys moving forward. Anybody who's trying to be an entrepreneur, anybody creative, like there's ways to make money off of doing what you love. If you're blogging, you're not gonna make money right away. Nobody's gonna pay you to write your first article, but if you write enough articles and some of them are good and you get the right eyeballs, then one day you're gonna get ad space, and you're gonna get, maybe you'll get hired by a magazine, and then next thing you know, you're writing all this content and making these pieces, and you have ideas for a network, and you start your own network. Like everything starts from something small. So yeah, that's kind of been my journey so far. And if you guys have any questions, I guess you could ask me. I don't know. Okay. Oh, I forgot one thing that I wrote down that's super important. So basically, fear is the difference between employees and employers. I can't stress that enough. When I came back from my trip, I unbelievably still had the option to go work for Lyft. And I was like, man, I went and I worked for them, and I got back into that miserable hole that I was in that world I didn't want to be in. And I was like, this is a steady check. Like, I can't leave this and go just follow my own ideas and try to just make money out of nowhere, because how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to eat, you know? And finally, I got to the point where I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm gonna try it out, and worst case scenario, I have somebody in this world that loves me and will feed me and give me a couch to sleep on, but I gotta try this, or I'm always gonna wonder what if. So I left my job that paid me regularly, and I started this company, and it was very hard at first. I didn't have money for anything, but after, you know, really grinding and sticking it out for a couple of months, I started working with like every big brand you could possibly think of, and now I'm making more money than all the people that work at the old job that I used to work at, all my friends that went to college and are working for like Ford and all these other companies, and it's just crazy. Like I live in a penthouse, you know? So I don't know, that's brand new, by the way. And that car in there wasn't my car, but I'll have one soon. But you know, it's just, you have to take chances, and you can't be afraid. I've never been afraid of like moving to a new place, never been afraid to take a risk. Like I'll invest money in never not working shirts because I believe that I'm gonna sell them. And all my passwords to everything I have is like, YesJulz is rich, or like mom's new house 2016. And it's just really like, I swear, it's really just like putting things into the universe and expecting that they're gonna happen and believing in it. Because if you don't, then nobody else will. And I know there's The Secret and all those like books or whatever, but it's so true. And you know, you just have to do it. Just Nike, just do it. Just, okay.
Broadway has the Tonys, Hollywood has the Oscars, and now social media has the Shorties.
Welcome everyone to the 7th annual Shorty Awards.
The Shorties are by far the most prestigious.
We are so proud to be part of the Shorty Awards.
Thank you, Shorty Awards.
Thank you for doing that. That was pretty cool.
I get a call, I gotta be at the Shorty Awards.
I'll speak from the heart.
Wow, that was awesome.
There is not a more passionate fan base out there.
Hi friends, what's up?
Thanks for the Best Singer Award. I really appreciate it.